Hey guys, Jake Hoback Knives. Just wanted to do a quick video for y'all. I'm getting enough folders out here to where it's come up, well, maybe once or twice at this point, but I figured I should do a video. If you get a folder for me, this is that prototype that I've been carrying with the HRD system in it. It's an A15. Eventually, the lock kind of wears, and once it gets to a point, it will loosen up sometimes. I try to cut my lock reliefs pretty thick so I don't bend the bar all the way across to touch the other scale if the blade's not in there. That's just so that you can actually open the dang thing with your thumb, but it adds a lot of strength to the web there so you don't have to worry about it collapsing if you ever did something stupid with it. The only downside or drawback to that is that every once in a while you'll have to bend the lock a little bit further as it wears. Shouldn't happen very often once the lock is actually seated, but when they're fresh and you're flipping them a bunch and you're breaking them in, the lock will travel over just slightly. And you can see this one is probably 20%, 25%, if you can get a look at that. And it's settled, and I've already bent it over, and it's real nice. It doesn't stick. Occasionally you'll get a little bit of a sticky lock when you get some oil on the tang. Just wipe that off, and if it stays sticky, just put a little bit of pencil lead on there. It usually takes care of it. But I was just going to do this video to show you how to take them apart. All of the folders that I have from the last probably 6 months up until now are going to be about the same setup with this. All the screw heads are on one side, pivot is on the lock side, so the pivot goes through the lock side. If you have one that's different and I sent it to you that way, keep it that way. There's probably some reason I did that, I'm not sure, but for the most part, all the pivots go on the lock side, straight through. So real quick, I'll show you how to do this. Let me see here. So I use a Torx driver for the pivot. The ones that I use are a T10, that's Torx 10, and then the 440 screws on the frame. They've actually changed because I got a new manufacturer, so they are also T10s, but some of the older models are T8s. So keep that in mind. Try to use the right driver so you don't strip them out, so I don't have to send you new screws. So first things first, just pop the pivot off there. I Loctite the pivots, so make sure after a while you'll have to hold your finger on the other side to loosen it up. I don't put a lot of Loctite on there, I just do enough to where the pivot doesn't loosen up. And then, so if you have a bolster lock from me, you'll have to pull the bolster off to get to the two screws in the back. This is my kind of version of an inlay, I guess you'd call it, so you don't have to pull the inlay out or the clip. You should be able to have access to all those. So just pop those out. And just try to be fairly gentle with them. Keep in mind when you're putting screws back in, if it doesn't go in really easy, then you're doing something wrong and it's going to strip the screw out. So just keep that in mind. So the blade will be loose after that point. You should be able to just pop the screws out of there. And okay, so there you go. Here's the bearing system. Honestly, it's nothing special. It's just a 62,000 size ball bearing in a nylon cage. I get them from McMaster Car. It's just a radial thrust bearing, I guess, or a ball bearing thrust bearing. Pretty simple. I'm not sure why Zero Tolerance has a special name for them or anything. So here's the blade. Obviously you can see I've been carrying the crap out of this thing and beating on it because it's all nasty. So to the lock. You can leave all this stuff in here unless you plan on cleaning it. If you already got it apart, you might as well clean it. I actually use engine assembly lube. It's kind of a real thick, sticky oil. I like it. It really tends to smooth things out and make them really buttery. So bending the lock. You can see here, what I like to do is indicate with my thumb or just visually inspect and see where the lock rests naturally when it's got no pressure on it. And then when you need to bend it, I just take it in one hand, cup it, and just take this thumb and push it. And what you want to do is just push it ever so slightly, and you'll push it, that's about as far as you can push it before it'll actually take a set. It's about 1/2 inch or so. Push it and just inspect it. Push it a little bit more, inspect it again. You don't really need to move it a lot. Once the lock is settled, it's really not going to need to move farther, but you'll probably end up moving it over. If your lock has a little bit of rock or it's just a little loose, you probably need to move it over 2 or 3 thousandths, maybe 4. It really doesn't take a lot. So gently bend it over. If you bend that too far and you kink this area, the knife is done, so don't mess that up. If you're not comfortable with it, you're always welcome to send it back to me. I'm happy to fix things for y'all. Unless you're being totally stupid with it and break it on purpose or do something it's not meant to be, like trying to pry open doors and crap like that. It's not a big deal. Send it to me, I'll fix it. I'm happy to do that stuff for you guys. So yeah, so basically you just need to push it over a little bit and it'll take the set, and then just inspect this area from here to here. I'm going to use the... So from here to here, this area here is what you need. Let me see if I can actually focus it. Sorry, this is a terrible camera. From here to here, this little line is what you need to inspect. It just honestly needs to move over 2-3 thousandths at the most, and it's always better to bend it a little, check it, and then bend it a little and check it until it works, other than bend it all the way over and then realize it's too tight, because then your lock's going to get sticky because it's going to push too hard against the tang of the knife or the blade. So that's about it. So putting it back together is pretty simple. Just slide the blade back on there, push it down, pop the bearing on there. I usually indicate where the frame goes by putting the stop pin through the hole in here first, and then rocking it back slightly and pushing down. And then, if I can find the pivot screw, you'll just slide that in. Take your Torx number 10 driver. Sorry, I've had like 3 cups of coffee this morning. Slide that in there, pinch it together, and put your thumb on the other pivot so it doesn't rotate. And this one will help you guys if you ever have a blade that goes off center a little. Tighten that up fairly tight and you'll have it nice and centered, but it'll be too tight. It won't want to roll. Then you'll put your backspacer in. Actually, sorry, you'll have to loosen that. Put your backspacer in, slide it into place, and tighten it. And then you'll actually be able to get your backspacer in there. If you get this front screw in first, it's easier to pivot the backspacer into place so that the holes line up. You just wiggle them in there. Now, to fix a blade that may not be perfectly centered when you're reassembling, don't tighten these screws. Just put them in there to where they're to where it starts to snug up, and then back it off about half a turn. Just snug and back it off. Okay, back it off. Now, you have your pivot nice and tight, blade's nice and centered. You're gonna notice it's a little tighter than you want it, but the blade's pushed over, so I'm gonna pull the blade towards the lock with my thumb tightly, and then tighten these screws. Then, when you loosen the pivot where you want it, open it a couple times, check it, tighten it if you need to, and it'll be centered. It's a pretty easy fix. Most knives are like that. If you just loosen up the frame, tighten the pivot down really tight, and push against the blade, and then tighten the screws back up, it usually fixes it. Just push the opposite direction that you want, or the same direction you want the blade to travel, and it'll take care of it. Alright guys, well, sorry for the rambling post here. Hopefully that helps anybody that ever has any issues. always welcome. Like I said, give me a call. If you don't feel comfortable fixing anything, just send it in to me. I'm happy to fix it for you. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.